Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain.
Hello, everyone. Happy day after Turkey Day. I hope you didn't miss us too much yesterday. Hello, Lil. You seem to be muted again. Oh, and there's my alarm that it's time to get ready to start the show. Live broadcasting. Now, I do have an alarm set, but when Chris ends early, I try to start early when I can so that it's, a convenient rollover sort of thing. It's easier viewing experience for y'all who watch both shows. So hooray and things. I still have the Halloween font up, don't I? My goodness. So the way I set up these shows is I'll often take, when I'm scheduling new shows, is I'll take old ones that we've already done and then like repurpose them because there's already the stuff there. I just have to update the title, the description, and the thumbnail and then set it on a new date. So we're in the studio of a show from October, so it still has the Halloween script, which amuses me. Anyway, I was off yesterday. IRL stuff. There was much turkey. There was much rejoicing. Hopefully, all of y'all in the U.S. had something to eat because that isn't a given in the U.S. and around the world for that matter. And you're feeling wonderful and delightful and whatnot because we're gonna fix that for you.
Am I back?
You are. Hello.
Yes. Hello. Yeah, my mic just decided to quit working on me for some reason, but okay. It happens.
adventures in technology for sure. So as you can probably figure out, I'm in rebel mode today because we're talking about the first Black Friday. Now, of course, there have been many Black Fridays throughout history, but I mean the Black Friday that kind of, in a weird way, gave this Black Friday, the day after American Thanksgiving, its name. And then just like every other holiday in the US, it's imported and misunderstood. Well, I suppose technically Thanksgiving isn't important, but imported, but definitely misunderstood. Anyway, I digress. Right-handed since December, you're always a little off, but in a good way. That's debatable, but details. Yeah, there's a lot of history. Okay, so Black Friday in the US started in the middle of the 20th century after post-Thanksgiving, pre-Christmas traffic started to get a little out of control in Philadelphia and surrounding cities because of all the sales and things. Because it was the 50s and 60s. We were doing hyper capitalism because we have to stick it to those godless commies or something. The reason they picked the term Black Friday was because it was a Friday that was horrible for the police because of the Black Friday we're talking about today. And we will get to that soon. And yes, it has to do with feminism, hence it being on Feminist Friday. I do want to note a couple of things. I've scheduled out the shows for most of December, all the way up to whatever holiday you prefer to call what happens on the 25th. I like Yule, but some people call it other things. We're doing an Atheist Advent this year. I may have mentioned this before, but people catch some shows and not others. We're doing a full-on fucking Advent. I've had this idea before, but it's really only possible if you're doing a daily show. And as it happens, we have one of those. So I've got this little Advent calendar that's, despite the Santa on the cover, is full of science. We're going to do some science, but also topics. Like traditional Advent calendars, at least as I understand it, is you get like a little present and then a Bible quote. So we've got the present. The Bible quote is something you're supposed to reflect on, a value, something you're supposed to be grateful for or embody more thoroughly in the year to come, that sort of deal. Instead, I've got secular accomplishments, things that make our society great in a way totally unrelated to religion, and then a corresponding Bible quote for that. So it should be fun. I hope you join us. That's going to be most of our hot topics, up to and including the mega stream that Purple Rhymes with Orange does for the 48 hours surrounding Christmas. It should be pretty neat. But more immediately, later today, I'm doing a stream with Dr. J. Bundy. We're going to do some adult Bible study. An emphasis on adult Bible study. It's exactly what you think it is, and it should be enlightening. So I hope you joined us for that. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern, if I remember my own schedule properly. Who the hell knows? I just work here. I'm trying to keep track of too many things. But yeah, it should be really great. So we have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Of course, the debate reviews on the weekend, bonus shows when I can, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you're new here, take a second, hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel and helps you get shown when we're doing something cool, which is often. So come hang out with us. We'd love to see you in the live chat. Yeah. And speaking of the live chat, hello everyone. I saw there was a bunch of live chat that took place yesterday because people tried to come over and have turkey with us and whatnot, and appreciate y'all. We're here now. Hooray. You know me. I'm a crazy person. If I could have done the show yesterday, I would have. I just had to be on the road at the same time the show normally started. So I could move it earlier and be on at the same time as Chris, but that wouldn't really work very well. So I just, yeah, say lovey. Anyway, hello everyone. Heathen Granny and Right-Handed Sith, and Ryan's wandering over. Hello. Make sure you hit the like button. On the way in, on the way out, shake it all about. All the things.
Mm-hmm.
Secular Feelinist says from Reddit, but what about White Friday? For real. Like just a few days ago. Weirdly, let me double check before I misstate something. I'm pretty sure, but I want to double check. When is International Men's Day? Okay, I was correct.
God.
We just had International Men's Day. It's November 19th, right? And men don't care because they don't actually give a shit about
Because
when they're on
nothing
holiday, right?
changes. There's nothing going on. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, there's no celebrations, no let's remember the wonderful men like Mr. Rogers. I mean, you'll see a few posts like that on various social medias and things, but the men who always ask, when's Men's Day? When's this? When's that? They don't care. It's just a gotcha because they don't know and they think there isn't because they're fucking idiots. But what's fascinating is the original Black Friday, 1910, took place on November 18th. It was earlier in the month. And it involved a lot of abuse of women, like a crazy amount of straight up abuse of women. That's one of the reasons it's called Black Friday. It was the feminist movement that named it that because of the abuse of women. And then International Men's Day immediately follows, like the next day. Brilliant. So we're going to mark the day of the abuse of women, followed immediately by celebration of men. Amazing. You can't make this shit up, people. All right. I see a Kelly. Hello.
Hello. I was like, dang. I'm like, must be invisible.
I just get into rant mode from time to time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How was y'all turkey day?
I had the best turkey I can ever. I can't say the best ever. I've been alive for a while now, but the best I can remember having. It was ridiculously good.
How was
Like,
it prepared?
Good. See, it was a Friendsgiving kind of thing, so everybody brought stuff. I brought rolls and pies.
Okay.
Pies. Everyone sleeps on the pie. Goodness. Anyway, but a friend of mine made the turkey. Everything was good, but like the turkey was like orders of magnitude above everything. I'm like, holy shit, this turkey is amazing.
I come in and Lil leaves.
Yeah. We scared her off.
Was it just roasted, or did they fry it, or did they like smoke it or something, or was it just the regular roasted turkey?
It was I have to get the exact recipe because it's quite the procedure, but apparently it involves soaking it in this juice, seasons and spices and things for
like a brine.
Yeah, like 24 hours. And then afterwards, you have to do surgery on it to remove the spine, to spread it out. And then you have to make another custom basting paste with butter and spices and things. And you have to smear it in like certain ways. And then you have to put it on a cooking tray, but not just on a tray, like on a cookie tray above the cooking tray. So it's elevated a little bit, and then do certain magic rituals and things, carve sigils into the oven. I don't know. It's a whole process, but it produces this amazing fucking turkey. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll usually put mine on a smoker.
Smokers are nice too. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great ways. Like I've had deep fried turkey before.
Oh, that's good.
Properly, that can be very, very good.
Yes.
It can also be very, very dry when it's not done properly.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Lil. Oh, okay. She says fucking internet BRB. In the background chat, because there's.
I was like, you were trying to say something, Lil. Like, Kelly's here. I'm gone. Bye.
Yeah. Like we can only have one co-host at a time.
I know. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. It's an oof. It's an oof.
Checking the feelings is not feeling well. Hope you feel better.
Yeah. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, I ate too much. Shock and surprise. But I mean, like, I ate. My stomach can't hold as much as it used to, especially after not feeding myself well for a while there. Um, but the turkey was so good, and like there were so many things that I didn't have a chance to have, and so there's this inclination of like just sample everything. Did you know that sharp cheddar is really, really good? You probably already
Yes.
knew. I just
Yes.
found out yesterday.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes.
ridiculous how good it is.
Yes, it is. I know, like when I do my macaroni and cheese, I like to have a mixture of different cheeses and stuff, but they have like extra sharp. Just gives it that bite,
Mm. Yeah, it's I don't know.
but you
It's
don't want
something.
all sharp. That's not.
The way we perceive flavor has to do with the chemicals that our bodies can make use of, because what are taste buds except chemical receptors, right? They're just receptors, and when they're exposed to certain chemicals they react a certain way. When they're exposed to different chemicals they react a different way. When it's a chemical your body needs, then they go ding ding, we need this, eat more. So that's what tastes good. When it's something you can't actually use, then they go, nah, that's awful, get it out of here, and so you stop eating that. Like that's why that works that way. When I was little, I hated cheddar cheese. I thought it was revolting. But now it still tastes the same, but it tastes really, really good.
Yeah, that happens. A lot of times your taste do change. You do, because a lot of foods I didn't like as a child. I'm like, oh, this is not bad.
Yeah, it's very peculiar. I do not understand.
But then we Americans like that American cheese. It's okay, but it's not really cheese in a sense.
Well, yes and
But
no.
that's
I
what
don't know.
that's the little kids always want to have American cheese, my kids, American cheese. Now,
I
if you get the block, like we used to get as a kid, the Focus
Yeah,
Hope kind of cheese, that was a little different.
the
But
government cheese.
yeah,
Yeah, same. My grandmother, she was on like she still had the actual blue fucking stamps for things. I'm like, what the
yeah,
it was what, but we got the government cheese all the time. And
yeah.
when she eventually moved out and she went to like, it wasn't assisted living in the same way as like a nursing home, but it was like an apartment building for seniors where they had a little bit of additional help kind of thing. So when she moved out, my parents started buying bricks of Velveeta, hoping that my brother and I wouldn't notice the difference because
You
it
know
still
it's a
came in a
difference.
brick.
I remember I
Which,
used to
you
get
know,
that. I remember my granny when I first had my child, she would give me like the cans of chicken and stuff, and I would make like soups and get the beef, and I would make like this pulled pork thing. I would make. You got to improvise.
oh yeah, gotta
Nobody
get
knew that it
creative.
was that. I remember one time they had a little area you could just pick different canned goods and stuff like that, and they had canned pumpkins.
Ooh.
And black people really don't like pumpkin pie, but I didn't tell them it was pumpkin pie. But I made like I would my sweet potato pie, and then nobody ever knew that it was not sweet potato pie. They thought it
It's
was.
weird how people are okay with stuff as long as they don't know what
They
it
did
is.
not know what it.
You
They
know?
did not know. I
Yeah,
didn't tell them either.
I did that experiment with my kids a few times. Broccoli, right? Like as long as they didn't know it was broccoli, it was the best thing ever. Oh, I want to eat the little trees. They're great in all sorts of dishes and what. But as soon as they know it's broccoli, ew, I don't like broccoli. And then you give it a couple of years until they forget, and then you give it to them again, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing."
I'm glad my
It's just an
kids was pretty good with
expectation.
eating vegetables. My youngest, no. The other four, they like vegetables and stuff.
Right-handed Sith is suggesting cheese shops near me. So he says the best cheddar I've ever had was from Colossus Cheese, which is a specific cheese shop in Colossus, New York. Like that's
Okay.
that's a place in a place. And
Oh,
H20, yeah. I'll have to wander up there. It could be delightful. We have, so the Adirondacks, it's kind of like a time capsule in some ways. That whole region is like 100 years ago, but with modern technology. Like people are neighborly and they just do things when they need doing, and they make stuff. They make their own stuff instead of buying it at Walmart. And some of the best stuff on the planet is made up there. Adirondack chairs. I realize most of those are made in factories now, but that's where they come from. Colossus cheese, Krogan bologna, like anything that a deli could make. You might think New York City. No, go to the Adirondacks.
Oh
Trust me.
wow.
Yeah. It's an adventure. I mean, hell, it's an adventure anyway, because the scenery is beautiful. But I do digress. Well, technically, it's not a digression if I haven't actually started the main topic yet. Details. It's all right. Oh, goodness. But yeah, I ate too much. Like, I reached a point where like, things started to actually hurt. Like, I dropped something, I bent over to pick it up, and it felt like I'd pulled a muscle. It wasn't the same as pulling a muscle, though. But I was like, oh no, I've angered the digestive gods.
Were you able to bring a plate home?
Yeah, that was one of the requirements, is everyone had to bring Tupperware. So
Okay.
I
Oh,
stole
that's
some of this
excellent.
magic turkey for study, for science, of course, and also sandwiches. But I grabbed a little bit of the stuffing, and someone else made this weird hybrid of pumpkin and banana bread. It was
Oh, that
both
sounds
pumpkin and banana,
interesting. Okay.
and it was so good. I'm like, what
Okay.
is this monstrosity that I am
And
so in love with?
and the weird thing is, I do not like bananas, but I can eat banana bread.
Yeah, I mean, banana bread's fine, but pumpkin bread is just far superior, but it's kind
Yeah,
of
it is.
rich. But mixing the two together, it was like both flavors were there in just the right amount. The bread wasn't like too sticky, it wasn't too heavy. It was fucking delightful. It still had that cake kind of integrity that banana bread and pumpkin bread sometimes have. I wouldn't want to make
Yeah.
a sandwich out of it because it would just crumble to pieces. But eating it on its own, like a side bread kind of thing.
I think my favorite is zucchini, though.
Oh, I have never tried zucchini bread.
Oh, it is delicious.
Ooh.
Yes. Zucchini bread is delicious.
In fact, I haven't had zucchini outside of a stir fry in ages.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna
Zucchini
get
is
terrible ideas.
delicious. Zucchini is delicious.
Yeah. Ooh, Lil moved.
A
You're
little bit.
frozen on screen since you joined. Or rejoined, whatever the case may be.
Ah, damn it. Yeah, my internet
But you're muted,
might not
though.
be cooperating this morning.
There we go. All right, Eric Wander's been
my internet might
waiting,
not be-
raring to go with the emoji.
Yay! Don't y'all like my new emoji they got for me?
That's right. Kelly's got the upgraded emoji, and blame Lil for that
Yeah,
one.
I don't
She
think it's
put
gonna
a
work.
crown on the image that I used for Kelly's emoji, and I was like, well, I mean, hell, if it's there, yoink, piracy.
Purple says, can't stand zucchini bread, don't like pumpkin bread, love banana bread.
Sacrilegion. I mean, pumpkin bread is or banana bread is fine, but pumpkin bread is like holy.
I
It's
also
like
make a
the
strawberry
sacrament.
walnut bread as well.
Strawberry bread?
Strawberry walnut, yep. Oh, you have to add the nut, but yep, make a strawberry bread. Yep.
I'd never
Kind of
even
that same
considered such a
family
thing.
of a quick bread, yeah.
Yeah, see,
My granny used to make it.
this is why we need more cultural back and forth and whatnot, because there's so many foods that I don't even know exist. And I'm sure that's probably not true for white people food, because like white people insert themselves everywhere into everything. And so everyone else knows about white people culture. But like, I feel like there's probably a few foods I've been hiding that y'all might not know about. I don't know.
I know if I usually like to eat, I want to say white people food. I like the Southern grandmas. It's them ones that can cook.
That actually came up. You know, us weirdly, even though we didn't have like a stereotypical group, like the group at my friend's giving, it was like there was one straight cis hetero couple. Everybody else was some flavor of LGBT. I've never seen so many trans people in the same room at the same time. It was
Oh,
amazing.
I know. I know.
Yeah. So all of us of the femme variety just kind of instinctively started preparing the food while the men went off and played video games and things. It just happened that way. And we were talking about spicing foods. And some of us were like, oh, well, you know, I only learned to cook from my mom or my grandma. And she was very basic, very vanilla, like salt and pepper, maybe a little bit of garlic kind of thing. And then so we started saying shit like, oh, yeah, we were raised white woman, but we're no longer practicing. We're lapsed white people when it comes to spices and cooking. Lillable Trades sends us $5. Apparently trying to bribe us for her absence or something. She says, internet might suck, but still love y'all. Also, Kip tried to steal the ham yesterday. That's what you get for making ham on Turkenmas. I've warned you people. The gods will punish you for that shit.
My question is why you didn't share none with the fur babies.
Was
Sugar
what
got
now?
some ham and turkey.
Right.
She got, yeah, she got ham and turkey. Though she wanted more. No.
Yeah.
I
mean,
had
why not?
Thanksgiving.
It's fine to have multiple things, but to have him, I don't know. I just work here, folks. I just work here. Right-headed Sith says, haggis or crawl are white people food not many would know about. That's true. One is Scottish and the other is Welsh. Don't trust
I mean,
Welsh.
I've heard of them, but I would never try them. Ever.
Pasties are also Welsh-ish. Pasties. The only pasties that come to mind are the tiniest possible top covers. But never mind that. That's for a different website. C'est la vie. But my goodness, there's so much. Scones. Scones
Yes.
are amazing. I love them. Oh, I love them so much.
I
Anyhow,
had a fun.
Dr. Kip says it was Thursday. it was just Thursday. No
Like
genocide holiday up in Canada.
Like what Forrest says, the frozen hellscape of.
Oh my.
Oh man.
Faux show. Oh well. All right, so we have some history to get to. And
Yes.
so okay. Tracking down all the details of this story have been difficult because, like I've mentioned whenever we talk about Dr. King, anytime there's a civil rights movement, whether it's consciously for propaganda means or unconsciously based on personal bias or whatever, there's inevitably some whitewashing of the story. Like with Dr. King, it's all peaceful, don't resist, be just you know, that sort of thing. That's not that ain't it, right? Like King, when he was so remarkable because he went so out of his way to try to be nonviolent. But even so, he wasn't a total pacifist either. So don't let his story be rewritten in that way. But everybody else just got kind of shoved into the closet. Malcolm X, like he's known of, but not many people really know his story. Similar thing with the suffragists. We think of the scenes from like Mary Poppins and shit with women just wearing a sash and marching around or something. Now they did that too, but that's like the most wholesome fictional version of what actually went on. It erases so much And it's the part that's erased that actually changed things. So yeah, a purple says Malcolm 10. That's right. He was obviously Roman. You could tell just to look at him or something. It's a thing. So I did find one news article that covered most of the history of November 18th, 1910. And then when I opened it this morning, it was mysteriously locked behind a paywall that hadn't been there previously. It must be a Black Friday sale, I'm sure. Stuff that was affordable is now on sale for a higher price than it was before. Yay, capitalism. Ay. Bree says, I just watched Hemant's latest and I am angry. Now I'm curious, what is Hemant's latest? Because Hemant, for anybody who doesn't know, is the friendly atheist. He covers a lot of secular news, but he does it so much, I have no idea what he just talked about. Like the newest thing.
I haven't watched him in a minute. I used to watch him regularly.
I know, I can't keep up, especially being a content creator myself. Like, there's so much going on. Let's see, 19 hours ago, news roundup. All right. So he does these, I think they're weekly news streams that are a couple hours long, where he talks about different news stories and like dives into the news stories and things. And it's pretty neat, especially if you're, focused on secular stuff. But there's one from 2 hours ago. Iowa Republicans block satanic holiday display in the state capitol. So they're breaking the laws again. Now, for a little bit of backstory, Iowa has been actively stripping human rights from people the last couple of years. They had a big blow up a year or two ago about a satanic display in the Capitol, because since they had Christian displays, 10 Commandments, etc., they could not block the Satanic Temple from putting up a display. And it made them mad. But now that we're under fascism, they don't have to enforce the law evenly, because who's going to stop them? But on top of that, pushing back on religious liberty, right? The freedom to have any religion you want, rather than you must be Christian, they're pushing back on that too, because they've already started to remove people from human rights. Like, they have a law in Iowa that says people have human rights. And unlike every other state in the country, they have specific exemptions carved out. Now, you can probably guess which group they carved out first. So in Iowa, presently, the law reads, humans have human rights, except trans people. That's in their law. If you are a trans person, you are specifically exempt from having human rights in the state of Iowa. So they're making milestones for Christian nationalism.
Fuck y'all.
It's fucking wild.
It just pisses me off so much. Oh man, okay. Let me stop.
Right, Edith says, I'm not a content creator, and sometimes even I can't keep up. It's true. There's a lot. So yeah, Deviant says, Iowa Republicans block satanic. Yeah, it's the satanic Christmas display. I assume it could be just about anything, though, because there's so much bullshit. It never ends with these fascists. But that brings us back to the past. We're time traveling today. Okay, in fairness, the British government of 1910 was not fascist. They were just dicks. But we'll get to it. Like I mentioned. So women's suffrage movement had been going on. I'll set the stage. The suffrage movement had been going on since the middle of the 1800s, right? Like Seneca Falls Convention here in the US, similar movement in the UK, various things like that. Things had been heating up for a very long time. And in 1910, in 1908 and 1909, things had started to turn violent. And in order to curb that violence, the suffragettes, not to be confused with the suffragists, the suffragettes were a specific political group. Like, I'm having trouble thinking of a contemporary example because it seems like all our movements are decentralized. Like there is no Antifa headquarters, but the suffragettes did have a headquarters. It was a group of a few hundred affluent women in the, what was it, the Women's Social and Political Union, I believe they called themselves. I may have that wrong. We'll get to it later, but it's along those lines. It was formed by the Pankhurst family and a few other people, including an actual fucking princess, the daughter of a Maharaja of India, and goddaughter of Queen Victoria. So like an actual fucking princess was in this group. And they were fighting for women's rights because there were affluent women. They had a lot of power and they were like, we want votes, damn it. And so things started getting more and more spirited, more and more aggressive, because the way the suffragettes framed it was the men in charge cared more about property than women's lives. And so they started doing things like when they'd get arrested for protesting in public, because who needs a, First Amendment or I realize this is the UK, but they do have free speech laws over there too. But they would get arrested for protesting in public. It was, they'd bill it as some random shit like public indecency. It's indecent for women to want their voices heard in public. Can't have it. So the government started taking action. They were starting to listen because these powerful, affluent women were putting so much pressure on them, in addition to the ongoing decentralized protests that weren't affiliated. The suffragettes and the suffragists were both taking action at the same time. And so the government was starting to move. In 1910, they had a bill on the table going through Parliament called the Conciliation Act, which, in addition to being a standard budget bill, also would grant the right to vote for certain property-owning women, because it's always the property owners first. But whatever, it would have been a first step, and they were excited that there was some progress. It was a foot in the door. Since it was about property owners, that would technically make women eligible for the House of Lords, and so on and so forth. C'est la vie. They were going to do the thing. And then the prime minister was like, we could vote on that bill. We could enact that bill. We could make that bill become law. But instead, I'm calling for a snap election. The government is dissolved. Like, he dissolved the government rather than allow the right of women to vote to be brought to a vote. Can you think of something more anti-democratic? Like, no. Not only will I not allow this law to pass, I'm dissolving the fucking government to prevent it from passing.
And they could do that?
Fun. What? In some political systems, yes. There's I think Canada can do a similar thing, although in their case it's like you have to hold a no confidence vote and then you have a new election to replace people. And so we don't have governments that function to that level here in the US, so we don't fully understand the nuances. But in a lot of countries, yeah, a prime minister can call for a snap election and replace the government.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. But in their cases, the administrative and bureaucratic parts of the government keep operating while the elected representatives are replaced. It's not like everything stops, because they're, even when they're having their mantrums, as Adjur says, they're still more mature about it. So yeah, it's a thing. But anyway, so this big fucking kerfuffle, the women's rights advocates took that personally, because that was the only reason for his action, was to stop this bill from passing, from becoming law. And so they were going to meet with him about it. They were invited to come speak with him in Parliament in groups of 12. And the reason it's groups of 12 is because there was also a law against public protest of a certain size. And the certain size was 13 people. So they came in groups of 12 for a total of 300 women. these individual groups, not illegal in and of themselves, and they were supposed to meet with the prime minister in scheduled meeting blocks, like 5 or 10-minute meetings or something like that. On the day of November 18th, 1910, he refused to see them. He just shut the doors of Parliament. And minister of, I forget what he was minister of, but he was in charge of police and security and propaganda, and his name was Winston Churchill. He called in extra police. So the women showed up in groups of 12, but couldn't actually go in, have their meeting, and then disperse after. So they started to build up and build up and build up. And when 300 women were there, Winston Churchill ordered the police to attack. They just attacked the women who were there to meet with the prime minister in front of Parliament. They beat them. They attacked them. They hurt them. They groped them. They took them down dark alleys where nefarious deeds the newspapers refused to report on took place. At least one person died, and 2 people came up pregnant afterwards. So people were furious. Even people who didn't like the suffragette movement were furious. You do not treat women this way. None of them were charged, though. Over 100 women were arrested. Churchill ordered the next day they all be released because it was the incident, it was the attack, it was the beating that was supposed to be the lesson. This wasn't justice. This was, we have the power, learn your place. And so they referred to it as Black Friday. But what's fascinating about it, aside from all this history being just kind of brushed aside, and the fact that it's still hard to access even today, because there's still that emphasis on whitewashing of making the history more clean and sanitized than it actually was. Like, oh, we've always been about peaceful protests. Our society has always worked well for everyone. Our society has never worked well for everyone. Sometimes it's better than others, but it's never worked well for everyone. Especially so when you're a party that doesn't have the vote. And this is what every minority group talks about with representation mattering. If it's your ability to vote, it's your ability to have someone who shares the same concerns as you speak up on your behalf before the powerful. It's a lot harder to send a group of people to a concentration camp when there are members of that group not only able to vote for or against you, but who have seats in the same legislative body that you're in. You know, like, it's harder for the Republican congressman to talk shit about women and repealing the 19th Amendment when there are women Congress members. You know, they still do it. They're still hateful assholes, but it's harder and it doesn't carry as much momentum. For example, this sorts of thing. So, yeah, I did track down a whole bunch of different sources, and I reckon we'll start with this one once I find the button. It's always about finding the button, isn't it? Okay, so this is Annie Kenny, who was one of the people who was there at Original Flavor Black Friday. And she was quoted after the fact saying, in response to the election news that was, the government is disbanded, we're holding a new election, the WSPU, that's the suffragette group, the Women's Social and Political Union, asked Prime Minister Henry Asquith to meet with a deputation of 300 women and to be presented in groups of 12 on Friday, November 18th. When the first group of 12 women, which included Emmeline Pankhurst, Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, and Princess Sophia Dulip Singh, that's the princess I mentioned, were told that Asquith would not see them, the remaining deputations continued to arrive at Parliament Square and to demand entry to the Parliament. Arriving in groups under 13 meant the actions of the deputations were not arrestable, because again, groups of 13 or more were illegal. Free speech. Instead, the police meted out jeers and violence, often throwing women onto unfriendly male onlookers. They handed out women to the crowd. Amazing. And remember, This is British. This is early 20th century. So it's not just women. It's, rich women. Women who count as humans because they have money. And sometimes wealthy husbands. It's fucking ridiculous. Sylvia Pankhurst in Votes for Women, November 25th, 1910. Another quote. In addition to physical injury, many women also experienced sexual assault, with some being forced down back streets by the police. Despite the police response being focused on violence and not arrest, 114 women were still arrested that day, often on charges of assault. The names of some of those arrested include, and then she lists off the names, and there's a lot of them. But that wasn't the end of the story. We shall go on. Suffragettes. Is the damn thing showing on screen? It is. Okay. Suffragettes were the militant followers of the Women's Social and Political Union, a group who campaigned for women's rights to vote in elections between 1906 and 1914. Kind of, yes. Again, there were suffragists for ages before, but the suffragettes were the WSPU, and they were founded by the Pankhursts and their friends and allies. I forget which one of them, maybe Emmeline Pankhurst, believed that the role of fighting for votes for women fell to the affluent because working women could not adequately do the job, partly because they lacked the education and partly because they lacked the leisure time. They had to go to work, whereas this work of protesting, it required dedication. It required refusal to leave. You had to occupy a space and stand there and make them move you. That's one of the reasons that Black Lives Matter was such a different character of protest, why people often said that it couldn't have happened if not for COVID. And they're kind of right, because when we all have to get to work in a couple of hours, we can't stand there and disrupt the system for days, So she's kind of right insofar as it's not to say working women couldn't help, but like the main thrust had to be on the affluent women. But she's only kind of right. This dismissal of the working class people, they can't help, they're no good to us. That's kind of dumb. There were some issues with that first wave of feminism, as I'm sure you're aware, like the whole, what votes for women, but not black women. They were hardly perfect people, but they were fighting for progress, is the point. So their attempt to storm Parliament, notice how this has been reframed already. One article to the next. No longer are they showing up to speak with the prime minister in legal groups. No, now it's being framed as a fucking January 6th. They tried to storm Parliament, and it was frustrated by the government's response and the government's repeated refusals to grant women the vote. And this is what we always talk about. Governments don't grant people the vote. You have to take it. They will never give it to you. But it was in response to one specific, extremely egregious attempt to withhold the right to vote. On the verge of it passing, dissolve the government. Amazing. The violence of the police and the crowd who gathered to watch on Black Friday sparked a change of approach, to put it mildly. It pushed the suffragettes towards more extreme protests, including smashing windows and burning property. Ann Kenny apparently is quoted to have said, "There was not one of us who would not have gone to our death at that moment," involving the protest in Parliament Square. Christabel Pankhurst was one of the more zealous leaders of the movement, and a lot of the women who were part of it followed her. Her other relatives were also there. They were also important, but Christabel was something of a prophet, you might say, because she did inspire something resembling religious zeal. November 10th, the Votes for Women campaign seemed to be on the verge of a breakthrough. The British Parliament was considering legislation, as a legislative body does, the Conciliation Bill, that would give the vote to about 1 million women, mostly wealthy property owners. The WSPU's leaders supported the bill and paused their militant campaign. That would be protesting. But the Liberal government had other priorities. And by Liberal, they mean the specific party, not like they were center left-ish, but like the party was actually called Liberal. You know, the same way the Democrats aren't democratic, they just call themselves Democrats, that sort of thing. So the Liberal government, the Liberal Party being the majority party, their government had other priorities. Prime Minister Asquith called an election for December 1910, which wrecked the chances of the bill being considered. And so we've got, you know, this group of the WSPU gathered and speaking and ready to do stuff. Arise, go forth and conquer. Hell yeah. The bill, the whole bill, nothing but the bill. But yeah, not words. That was a big part of it, was not words, because they ignore words. They don't care about words. And this is an important thing that's still true today. You can protest. You should protest because it's important to other people hear your message. But the government isn't going to listen to words. They just go, talk all you want. It's a free country. But what the reason that it's important for governments to pay attention to protests, all governments, not any government in particular, but all governments, is because those are a warning sign of growing unrest and a great injustice within your society. If you do not heed people's words, you're going to get escalating action following. When people's needs aren't being met, they're going to do what they need to do. Speaking of which, Lil sends us a member chat, which is a thing she needed to do. Member for 3 months saying, take what you can, take the vote, and kick out the Christo-fascists. Absolutely. Yeah, you know, take what, I realize it's small on your screen, but it says right there, take what you can. It is written. It is scripture, folks, because that's what that means. It is written. Take what you can. Holier words have never been inscribed on my arm. Oh, goodness. All right. News of the election reached the WSPU, and they gathered for a meeting in Westminster. Suffragette leaders, including Christabel and Emmeline Pankhurst, felt betrayed by the Prime Minister. You don't say. There were already plans for a peaceful march, but the 300 gathered suffragettes now went to Parliament in a furious mood. Now, again, we have the reframing of what actually happened. They were supposed to meet with the Prime Minister in legal groups, but now it's, oh, this mob of 300, we're going to storm the place, you know? Like, finding the actual history is so hard because there's so much revision. There's so much motivated effort to re-describe things that undeniably happened and erase the things that are deniable. Suffragette Annie Kenney was on the scene. She said there was a great storm burst. All the clouds that had been gathering for weeks suddenly broke, and the downpour was terrific. There was not one of us who would not have gone to our death in that moment, had Christabel so willed it. She was the Pope of womenism. Perhaps feminism, you might say. So what happened to make it Black Friday? After Prime Minister Asquith refused to meet with members of the WSPU, the suffragettes stayed in Parliament Square and tried to enter the House of Commons. The police responded violently, physically attacking suffragettes and throwing them into the hostile crowd of onlookers. There were repeated sexual assaults. Quote, several times constables and plainclothes men who were in the crowds passed their arms round me from the back and clutched hold of my breasts in as public a manner as possible, and men in the crowd followed their example, described one suffragette. My skirt was lifted up as high as possible. The constable threw me into the crowd and incited the men to treat me as they wished. Now, once again, this is Britain This is the turn of the 20th century. That's about as close to saying the cops told the men to rape me as they could bring themselves to say. May Billinghurst, a suffragette who used a wheelchair, recalled how the police threw me out of the wheelchair and took me down a side road, taking all the valves out of the wheels and pocketing them so that I could not move. Yeah. Disabled women. Yeah, they had those. That was a thing in 1910. Mm-hmm. Cops and their fucking mustaches.
I
Unreal.
mean, what's the difference with them, the civil rights, and they're getting the dog hoses, putting the dogs on them, and they're just peacefully protesting, not bothering nobody. They're trying to get rights. It's like that. Law enforcement been doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, people get all worked up over, the fire hose on protesters. It's outrageous. It's still dangerous, but it's literally the watered down version of what police used to do.
But then when you find out that the water pressure is so intense that it could make damage with your skin, they could like tear your skin off if it's hitting you too pressure too hard. So but the fact they're just throwing women in there to get raped, that's a whole another scenario right there.
It's also worth noting that a lot of women in the years previous went on hunger strikes when they were arrested for protesting. They would sit in jail and they would refuse to eat until they were either released or women were given rights. So the state resorted to force feeding. It's a tricky situation from an administrative perspective. Do you let your prisoners dictate the rules to you? Do you let your prisoners die? Or do you force feed them? None of these are good options. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe stop being evil and there wouldn't be a need for that. But fuck.
Yeah, when I learned about the not eating, that was with Mahatma Gandhi when he did that to try to bring peace. But you realize he wasn't really a peaceful man
Well, yeah, it's
himself.
such a weird thing because there were like people who would like set themselves on fire and shit, and it was noteworthy, but nobody really acted on it. But a hunger strike, for some reason, hits different because I guess everybody understands hunger and how hunger intensifies the longer you do it. And so they were like, this man is torturing himself to show how committed he is. Clearly, he's very serious. Or something. I don't know why it's more effective. I don't understand. But for some reason, it's more effective. C'est la vie. Yeah, I'll make this bigger so it's easier for y'all to see. So the violent scenes made the front pages of national newspapers, but the sexual assaults, strangely, weren't mentioned. Although in general, journalists blamed the suffragettes for causing the violence. The Daily Mirror, which used to be a newspaper of record, noted that the police seemed to enjoy the fighting. Home Secretary Winston Churchill was blamed for encouraging the police's violent response. 119 protesters were arrested, but all were released without a charge the next day on Churchill's orders. The police, journalists, and suffragettes all tell different stories about the violence and who caused it. The suffragette base at Caxton Hall in Westminster was turned into a makeshift hospital for suffragettes with black eyes, bleeding noses, and so forth. Suffragette propaganda immediately labeled the event as Black Friday, the darkest day of the campaign to date. And hence the name. That answers the question of the day. Is this act of state violence against women being called Black Friday by the 1950s and 60s had been so covered over, so whitewashed, if you will, to such a great extent that the police of the 1950s and 60s understood it to mean a very bad day for police. And so they referred to the day after Thanksgiving where there were shoppers everywhere as a Black Friday. And from there, it spread across the country as a tradition referring to heavy traffic for shoppers because there were sales.
I want to thank you for touching on this subject because I thought it was a capitalist thing that the retail and the tried to put in place to bring sales to take over, stuff like that. I did not know that this was the reason why they call it Black Friday. Thank you for bringing insight to me.
Yeah. I mean, well, okay. I think it's important for a few different reasons. One of them is because people don't know a lot of the real history of the suffragist movement
Yeah.
because so much of it's been hidden. And another is that a lot of people don't realize there's still an active effort to hide large chunks of our history for reasons. Again, I will point at Dr. King, who, yes, his work was exceptional. However, he wasn't the only one doing work. You need both him and Malcolm X and all the other people, all the men who were lynched in the South trying to register voters, the people of all manner of races and walks of life who were buried in unmarked graves throughout the woods of the South. It takes all of them, the praiseworthy, peaceful stuff, as well as the distasteful work, the violence, and the people willing to fucking fight back. It takes all of them. Praising Dr. King, while he is praiseworthy, is itself propaganda. It's the authorities, it's the government telling you, if you need to protest, be like this guy, whom we can all live with and work around. He's the acceptable kind of protest. He's the kind that doesn't seriously disrupt society. He's the one who doesn't cause trouble for us.
Because I
Don't
remember
be
when I
like
was in
those other ones.
school.
In fact, forget they exist.
When I was in school, I was trying to do a report on the Black Panthers, and they would not let me do it because they were saying that they had hated towards white people, whatever. But they would not let me do it. They got, Malcolm X, no. King, yes. You can talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
But
and also, as I often have been as I've been pointing out more and more frequently in recent years, if you think you can be Martin Luther King and you'll be one of the good ones and you'll be safe, remember, he was just as assassinated as Malcolm X was. Even being one of the good ones, he still got just as dead.
Exactly. For the same reasons.
Mm-hmm. Even if you're doing things the right way, you still will not be tolerated by the people who don't want society to change.
Like what Fern Lovebond says, some situations call for Martin, some situations call for Malcolm. Exactly.
That's right. And everything in between.
I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to be nice to you right now to try to get my point across. But if I have to come out and show I will do that.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to have to happen with all, with the trans rights, the human rights, taking them away. We might have, I'm not saying do a January 16th because I would never do nothing like that, but be more forceful. And that's a sad thing to think that it might have to happen.
Here's the fucked up thing. The state of our country as it is now with its free speech, I cannot say, here's what we should do. Here's what we need to do going forward. All I can do and not get taken off the air is say, here's what other movements did. Here's the real history. Learn from it. Because we have free speech. Fucking amazing. Speaking of speech, Jester sends a super chat for $5. Thank you, Jester. And says, now, how do we make every Friday a Black Friday while boycotting actually buying anything? Titan want to fight me over a cart, then ditch it at checkout? Oh, you're talking about performative faux capitalism. I see. Like, making things harder. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think it really matters all that much. Like, you could go to great effort to bork over the corporations like the protesters did in Home Depots over the past week or so, where they'd buy ice scrapers and then return them just to keep the store tied up, because they weren't just boycotting, they were making it impossible for the store to function as a retail outlet. They were bottling it all up because the owner of Home Depot is supporting ICE. So they bought ice scrapers and then returned them, and then bought them and then returned them, and so forth. So yeah, that can be an effective protest for very specific use cases. But as far as Black Friday, it's not just the corporations, right? It's the government itself. What the corporations do almost doesn't matter at the level we need to operate on. You know, that's not to say it doesn't matter. Anything you can do, every little thing you can do, it adds up. It makes a difference. And that's what I want to get to, because shit happened after this Black Friday. It's important to know what happened on Black Friday, but that was just the start of a turn in the movement that would last until the First World War, when shit got serious elsewhere in the world, and suddenly the government found reason to settle its differences with the suffragists. Strangely enough. Who's to say? So yeah, there's but wait, there's more kind of thing. And finding the history that follows was even harder. Like, this is the end of the article right here, the one that we're looking at right now. After Black Friday, many WSPU campaigners wouldn't risk large marches. Instead, suffragettes went underground to take more severe action against the government. Many suffragettes became bolder after their experiences. They felt betrayed by the government that had now hurt them and violated their rights and hurt them and hurt their friends and so forth. They felt betrayed by the government and were now ready to meet state violence with extreme militancy. And that's an important thing. The state got violent first. Keep that in mind. In November 1911, a window smashing was officially adopted as a tactic by the WSPU. Arson and attacks on public artworks were also embraced. Now that's the end of that article. Because again, I had to go to so many different sources to piece together all the relevant bits, because it's so thoroughly hidden and dispelled. Now, and also worth noting, the stuff we covered today is the stuff I could find. If it's this hard to find the stuff that is publicly known, I don't even know what I don't know. I don't know what's been so thoroughly hidden that I would physically have to go to England and find newspaper clippings from that time to find out the shit that has been completely erased. You know? We have no idea how much we don't know at all. By design, this is just the tip of the iceberg, as it were, that I'm able to find and access. So this article from The Guardian says, led by the Pankhurst family, the Women's Social and Political Union, the Suffragettes, conducted a nationwide bombing and arson campaign unlike anything the country had ever experienced or has since. Now, they don't say how intense it was, but remember, many of us were alive when the IRA campaign for Irish liberation was fucking up the UK. To say that the militant suffragettes conducted a campaign of bombing and arson that surpassed the IRA's violence is saying a lot while saying very little. The context is important. Women across the UK carried out midnight attacks on MPs' houses, churches, railway stations, and post offices, armed with guns, bombs, and a belief that the only way to win the vote for women was to follow in the violent footsteps of men. Men get what they want through violence. Men suppress women through violence. So violence seems like the only way you're going to get anything done. And to be clear, They tried to do things the right way with protests and political meetings and so forth, and they were beaten and raped and arrested for it. And this, my dear friends, is what always happens.
So to me, it just seems like they're using these things to just, how do I put this, bring forth what they really want to do anyway. Like it gives them a pass
I
to
don't know.
them.
I really don't think
We
many
want
people
to
want
do
to
this
resort
to
to
women, we want to do this to black people, do this to trans people. So them fighting for their rights is a reason for us to a pass card to afflict what we want to do to them anyway. I don't know.
I dare say a lot of the reason that people start with nonviolence is because there's that accusation around the corner that if you start with violent means, oh, you're just using the movement as an excuse to do violence. You just want to do violence. You just want to sin, you heretics, you sinner, It's so they make it a last resort, but it is kind of a last resort. Like Secular Feelinist points out, Stonewall, right? Like the gays and trans people just wanted to be left the fuck alone, but the police kept attacking them. And eventually, they fucking defended themselves. Aunt Jur says, did you come across any accounts of working women having their children taken from them because their spouses, who became their exes, turned them in for child neglect? I have not. I know that was a thing that happened, but it isn't part of this story. So I haven't dug into it today. Though perhaps that could be an interesting one for another time. We'll bigify again. Let's see. Kitty Marion reduced the Sussex House of Conservative MP Arthur Ducroix to a burned-out shell during one of her attacks and proclaimed, if the government must have damage as a token that women want the vote, damage they shall have. Often driven by their experiences of sexual assault at the hands of bosses, the police, the government, and so forth, many of those women chose to carry out a campaign of direct action, which is a fun way to phrase terrorism, a campaign of direct action that we might now struggle to understand. We have sanitized our history of the suffragettes, remembering only their defiant bravery and rousing call to arms. But not all women believed that militant violence was the only way to convince the government to give them access to the political world. Many thousands fought for their rights with peaceful protests. And now we see the whitewashing creeping in again. It was just a few who were violent extremists. Most people were peaceful, really. Even after decrying the sanitization of the history of the suffragettes, they immediately engage in the same type of propaganda. It's amazing. They were not suffragettes, but suffragists, the inheritors from Josephine Butler or Millicent Fawcett of a long legacy of female activism in Britain, who marched, petitioned, raised money, and fought for women's rights without fighting. Our lack of knowledge of this work shows that feminism was as fractured and complex then as it is today. And that's an important note, too. We never agree on anything, whether it's feminism or black rights or LGBT rights. None of these movements are cohesive. None of them. Because we're all people and we all do things differently. And as I often say, it takes all of our voices. It takes all of our perspectives because we all see things slightly differently. It's not a matter of I'm right and this person is wrong, or they're saying that they're wrong and who knows what we should do. It takes all of us because you never know which perspective, which experience, which insight is going to reach someone and show them that what you're trying to do matters to get them on your side. It's exactly the same as counter-apologetics. We don't know whose thought or wisdom or event from their life is going to help someone start to deconstruct the bullshit they've been programmed with. And so it's important we all have our voices out there, and we do our best to build a community where everyone is allowed to speak. My goodness.
Too much like right, though.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that, we shouldn't have a unified movement that works together, but I'm saying it shouldn't be everyone should just back what Josephine Butler says, or everyone should back what Christabel Parkhurst says. We should all be saying our own things, and where our interests overlap, we should work together. That's how societies work. It's goodness. Zorcross says, of course, it's complete coincidence that the dominant religion is patriarchal. Yeah. Pure chance. It could have gone any different direction. It's fine. Our lack of knowledge of this work shows that, yeah, feminism is fractured. Finally, in 1918, and finally, as if it's the end of the struggle, whatever. Finally, in 1918, women aged over 30 and owning or occupying property worth more than £5 were awarded the vote. Awarded. Here's your trophy, your medal for your participation. You will be allowed to vote. Fucking hell. Some of the women who made sure Britain survived the First World War by keeping its social and economic infrastructure going, while so many men were dying at the front, who lost lovers, sons, brothers, husbands, and fathers, who manned the hospitals near the front lines, who worked as journalists and photographers documenting the tragedies of war. They, the good ones, were granted the right to be heard and to challenge the power structure in the UK. Granted the right to challenge the power structure. Do you see what I mean about the propaganda? You only have the right to challenge the power structure if the power structure allows you to. No, bestie. No, that's not how this works. It's the people who don't have voices who challenge the power structure. Because the people who are part of the power structure are already part of the power structure. You can challenge specific political goals within it, but you're part of the structure. You're not challenging it. The rhetoric, it's so heavy. It's so pervasive. And the worst part is I don't think the author even realizes they're doing it. They're just vomiting up what they've been programmed to think. And that's the end of the article. Fern Riddell is a cultural historian specializing in entertainment, sex, and the suffragettes in Victorian and Edwardian Britain. Her book, Death in 10 Minutes, Kitty Morrison, Activist, Arsonist, Suffragette, will be published on 19 April by Hodder and Stoughton for £20. Buy my DVDs. It's fine. So again, it's really, really hard to find what the suffragettes did after Black Friday, but we're getting bits and pieces of it. We're getting tastes of it. We're getting bombings, arsons, burned down an MP's house, some vague sense of attacks on train stations, perhaps. Okay, we're starting to get the shape of things. From Google, the suffragettes targeted property and infrastructure, not civilians, setting fire to post boxes, breaking telegraph cables, smashing shop windows, attacking artworks and exhibits in museums and galleries, because those were owned by the government, and carrying out arson and bomb attacks on buildings of public significance. According to former suffragette Mary Lay, WSPU leader Emmeline Parkhurst, the mother of Christabel, quote, gave us strict orders. There was not a cat or a canary to be killed. No life taken. That's really important. Because here's this movement that was described as, we just saw it described as more violent than what the IRA did, but they made it a priority because they had their values in fucking order. Human lives, human rights, property. Now, remember, they went after property because the government made a point of saying property mattered more than women. Damaging a window. There was a whole thing that Pankhurst put out there, the broken window theory, which has been somewhat altered in the years since. The idea was the government cares more about the broken window when a woman throws a brick than about the woman who was pushed to the point of throwing that brick. So yeah, destroy the property, but do not harm human lives. We are better than them. We will not do things their way. This is the weapon of the enemy, and we will not use it. So they took great pains. That MP's house that was burned down, they took great pains to make sure it was empty. Not even a house plant in the damn. I'm exaggerating. I don't know if they checked for house plants, but they went to great lengths to make sure they did not hurt people in the same way the government hurt them. They were just demonstrating that if it's going to take property damage, they're willing to oblige. Whatever it takes. So despite this limit on not taking lives, in fact, aborting missions, if there was a chance of taking lives, they would not do a thing, even if it would have been beneficial to the movement, if there was a risk of hurting someone. They would abort. That's another thing people today don't seem to know how to do, but whatever. Many people at the time still considered them acts of terrorism, which is kind of technically true. Now, to be terrorism, you have to invoke fear for your life, for political reasons, since they were specifically, expressly, and explicitly not taking lives, going to great lengths to not take lives, then it's definitionally not terrorism. You cannot be in fear for your life for a movement that is taking great care to not hurt you. You know? But still, some people did not like. According to the Suffragette newspaper, which was published at the time, more than 300 incidents of arson and bombing were carried out between 1913 and 1914, almost one a day. Now, some of them were something small, like blowing up a mailbox, but some of them were a little larger scale. 2 homemade bombs from the City of London Police Museum are believed to have been among several improvised explosive devices used by the suffragettes during their campaign of violence and extremism. We're just gonna yes, there was violence. Yes, absolutely. You could call it extremism insofar as they wanted something that was outside the Overton window of the time. But in the greater scheme of things, in the sense of the priorities of a civilized civilization, is asking for the right to fucking vote actually extreme? What do you mean extremism? The bomb, which is pictured, I'll make it big again so you can see better. The bomb, it's, oh shit, I broke it. Okay. As well as a second device now in the police museum collection, failed to detonate. Because again, default to safety. The point is destruction, but not doing harm to people. They survive today as a striking example of the lengths to which suffragettes were prepared to go for their right to vote. Those selfish women who would they go to these great lengths just for their own right to vote. Ah, shameful, shameful. Suffragette targets for arson. Oh, hey, it's a movie picture. It's a picture that moves. That's neat. I was trying to highlight the text, but that's pretty cool. Anyway, suffragette targets for arson and bombings included the Theatre Royal, Kew Gardens Tea House, Holloway Prison, the Royal Observatory in Edinburgh. Now, I must say, I'm not a fan of that one. And the home of Lady White. Suffragette Emily Winding Davison, who was later trampled and killed by the King's horse, bombed the home of the Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's a French word. I don't know why it's in England. David Lloyd George. The building was unoccupied at the time. And you'll see this over and over again. They bombed buildings, but they made sure they were empty first. Every time they burned a house or blew up a government structure, they made damn sure it was empty first. Emmeline Pankhurst was imprisoned for 3 years for complicity in the explosion at George Floyd's house. The day after her imprisonment, fuck, I can't speak English today. The day after her imprisonment, this homemade bomb made from a milk tin was found outside the Bank of England. Police defused the bomb before it went off. You can see it says dairy on it. So it's clearly it's made from a milk tin. Well, the casing of it anyway. This bomb, which we're seeing in the background now, made from a mustard tin, was left under the bishop's chair in St. Paul's Cathedral in May 1913, but failed to detonate. The following year, in June 1914, Westminster Abbey was bombed. Other churches attacked included Trafalgar Square, St. Martin in the Fields, and Roslin Chapel in Scotland. It's imperial mustard. It's not just any mustard. It's imperial mustard. The outbreak of the First World War in August 1914, however, caused the suffragettes to abruptly abandon their militant campaign, kind of half true, and channel their energies into supporting the war effort. Kinda. I just happened to glance over at the side chat, and I see Bree saying, "Ew, it's Kavai. Someone forgot to spray for Tate Bros." Oh my. Oh my. And PC dropping links. Thank you, PC. Appreciate you. Remember, this link goes to all the community members that I know of who are in trouble. It's Black Friday, it's holiday season. I understand money is tight. But it's me, it's Bree, it's Kyle, it's Naomi from the Horties. If you can help, please do, because we're all in very bad shape. Let me double check and make sure I haven't missed other important things. I probably have, because I'm very bad at my job, as all the world knows. That's why all y'all are here, because I'm so bad at this. I appreciate you folks.
That's why we're here, because you're not. You're good at this. Nah.
Well, opinions vary, because after all, there have been a lot of people who used to come here and don't come here anymore. So opinions definitely vary, but I appreciate you folks.
Yeah, opinions are like assholes, they say.
Yar. Oh goodness, what the hell? What is going on? I'm missing stuff. Okay, so Cafe said Titan, sorry. I meant to put that in Fireside's chat. I'm in the wrong chat. And Inter said, where is it? Cafe, you have never been more right. Oh goodness. Jester sends $2. Thank you, Jester, and says metric mustard would have gone off. Oh no. But you're not wrong. You are not incorrect with your assessment. Oh, bloody hell. Bloody hell. Cheerio, pip pip. I think, yeah, that's about the little bit more. According to LSE Women's Library, the increasing focus of the Women's Social and Political Union and the Pankhursts on supporting the war effort led to the creation of the Women's Party, the political party still engaged with arguments for women's suffrage, but was more concerned with patriotic support for the war. Which is, I mean, it makes sense in that they were showing that it's like about UK, like we want the right to vote, but we want our country to still be here, kind of thing. Like we care about the country too, but it's almost like turning pro-government, right? Because it was the Pankhursts who brought us broken window theory, who are saying if it's going to take broken windows, then let's go break some fucking windows. Like they organized that first post-Black Friday violent incident where women protesters showed up outside 10 Downing Street and threw bricks through the fucking windows. They were like, you want broken windows? Here's some. So to see them, who started this turn around and say, no, we have to back the government in our time of fighting the Germans for some reason. What the fuck? So yeah, I could see how people would be a little kerfuffled by that. But on the flip side, by throwing her own followers under the bus, Christabel kind of did get what she wanted. Like, she was able to cash in on all the terrorism that she had started and turn around and say to the government, yeah, I'm against this, though. I'm one of the good ones, and establish a political party that would lead to the goal she actually cared about, getting the right to vote. And she did a little while later. Deviant says, sent you a DM on Discord. It was on topic when I started writing it, but 2,400 characters later, not as much. Okay, I will take a look later. I know how that goes. I myself am prone to tangents. To such an extent, we have an emoji for it. Praise the tangents. I know people come here for the tangents. It's fine. Goodness. All right. Let me see here. But wait, there's more. So yeah, here's what I was just talking about. It's weird how when I switch back to the next article, it's right the next thing I was talking about, almost like I planned this or something. It's very strange. So yeah, in 1908, okay, this was actually before the Black Friday thing. It's some of the violence that was happening that was on pause while the bill was being considered. So in 1908, the government challenged the suffragettes to prove that votes for women had popular support. When the suffragettes organized one of the biggest demonstrations ever seen at the time in Hyde Park, the government refused to alter its position. When governments ignore the peaceful protests, they get the other kind. It was immediately after this, and an earlier bout of police violence, that the suffragettes threw their first stones through the windows of 10 Downing Street. Much of the direct action undertaken by suffragettes was pioneered by militants, since described as freelance. They acted without the permission or foreknowledge of the WSPU's more conservative leaders. These women were often closer to socialist ideas than their leadership. Now, it's weird to call them freelance and say acting without permission, and then refer to the more conservative women whom they explicitly were not following as their leadership. Are they acting free agents, or are they under their leadership? Which one is it? Mary Lay, who, or Lee, depending on which part of the aisle you come from, was one of the first two window-smashing suffragettes. She was, you might say, the Sylvia Rivera of the early 20th century. She was a working-class woman with a deep commitment to militancy, and that's why she wasn't accepted in the WSPU. Not because she was more violent, but because she was working class. Remember, the first wave was deeply divided. It was affluent women before working class women, before colored women, before sexual deviant women. You know, it's always these fucking steps. And also remember, the reason the women's suffrage movement started in the middle of the 1800s the way it did was because Black men got the right to vote. People like to point at the Seneca Falls Convention and say how Black women were explicitly excluded. And that's true. And that's horrible. But also remember, one of the primary motivations that got the suffrage movement rolling in the first place was racism. It was, how come Black men can vote but not white women? What the fuck? Now, in some ways, that's a legitimate criticism, insofar as, why does one minority get to vote and another does not? There's clear discrimination happening here. But on the flip side, the overtone of white women are better than Black men, why don't they have the vote when the other group does, is kind of fucked up.
And that just shows you, like, women in general are the bottom of the totem pole. Let's understand why we don't unite more, and that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Like we shouldn't have to fight each other over fucking rights. We should be able to
Yeah,
fight together. But fuck the butts.
exactly. That's why I'm glad that most of us, at least in this chat group, are on one accord with a lot of things. We might have different opinions on some things here and there, but we all believe in equal rights for everybody. At least I hope. I think that's what I'm seeing.
It's a general sentiment around these parts, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, since it is Black Friday, and we're nearly at time for the show. We're actually slightly longer than usual, but it's not quite our normal ending time because we started early, as we sometimes do. I have to throw a little bit of capitalism. First of all, if you would rather not fuck the butts, then we have alternatives for you. This is the garlic bread shirt that's available on the Amber Store. I realize it's very small text. It says, if you want to have a good time, and then there's a picture of garlic bread and an ad for the channel, and so it's good for both double entendres and us ace folks who actually do like garlic bread better than the other stuff. We've also got a fairly new one. This is Protect Joy. Like, the whole community needs to protect the most vulnerable members of the community, but we all need to stand together. And so that's what that one is about, because I've been seeing a lot of stuff, protect the dolls or protect trans kids. And those are important, but they need to not be individual statements. Like, we need to protect trans men too. We need to protect, NBs. The fucking NBs are getting shit on from both sides. Just protect joy. If we legalize people existing as themselves, there will be more joy in the world by orders of magnitude. And it starts with protecting trans people, period.
Is this new?
Yeah. It
I
came
like
out
this.
the same day as the garlic bread.
I never saw that one. I only saw the garlic bread one. Oh, I got it. That's probably my favorite one.
Sometimes they show up underneath the videos here on YouTube, but you can see all the stuff at betterthanumber.com under the store tab. It'll open up the store in its own thing. And that leads me to the actual commercialism for today. Calendar makes a great gift. No political stuff, no religious stuff. It's just my own award-winning photography, photos that have actually won awards in a calendar for less than you can get calendars in most places. It's a much better calendar that you're going to find in a lot of places. And again, you can scroll through and see what the images are for each month on betterthanumber.com in the store tab. But this is just a thing that pops up on the screen here. Award-winning photography makes a great gift for literally anyone because there's nothing political or religious in it. Just the beauty of nature.
Will the calendar give you the most profit?
Not the most profit.
Okay.
I think probably the single most profity item in there is the Yahweh Away candle, because that one is literally just for fun. And so I think I make $5 on each of those.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing messagey about that. It's just for fun. I mean, it's an unscented scented candle, because of the joke. It is a nil scented soy candle.
Okay.
Stay lovey. All right. Capitalism aside, let's wrap up the window smashing before we gotta go. So let's see. Mary Lee was a working class woman with a deep commitment to militancy. She was one of the first suffragettes to endure forcible feeding. She was, and for anybody who doesn't know, force feeding is it's not just extremely unpleasant. It's painful. It's dangerous. It can kill you. It's torture. She was also a socialist who worked with Sylvia in the East End campaigns and spoke publicly about WSPU's leadership support for the British state during the First World War, which is kind of valid. Like, you can't say our government is horrible and then support them. What are you doing? Her closest friend was Emily Davison, who committed the most famous militant act of all. And by famous, we mean it got the most press attention, not that it was the biggest and greatest. She disrupted the Derby Day race by running in front of the king's horse, an action that, in the collision with the horse, cost her her life. She too was sympathetic to socialist ideas and was involved in the newly formed Workers' Education Association. That's right, before women even had the right to vote, we were already being politically active in other ways, like educate the workers. How socialist, how scary. But remember, when the WSPU is talking about how the working class women were uneducated, they didn't mean uneducated in the way workers today are uneducated, which is still pretty bad. But we're talking Victorian era, early Edwardian era, where uneducated meant they literally had never been to a school, a proper school. Most of them were illiterate. So yeah, she ran in front of the horse, like onto the field, kind of in front of the horse. She like came out of the stands, ran in front of the horse, and kept it from winning. She died. I'd argue that was a really bad idea, but it got more press attention than anything else because it interfered with the king's prize pony. Because that's what the rich fuckers care about. Never mind how many people are starving to death or how many people are perishing in the streets or sleeping homeless or suffering preventable illnesses. She interfered with the king's pony. Because that's how aristocrats work. That's
Something
why.
never change.
This is what I mean about priorities, right? Like humanists put human lives first and then human freedoms, human rights for all humans, and so on and so forth. We have our values in a priority structure. For the rich people who run everything, it's my pony, my house, my wife and children who are property, like me. And it's like down to number 20 or something before you're like, oh yeah, I suppose it would, if we can manage it, if we can fit it in the schedule, it would be nice if perhaps the working people didn't starve to death. Or maybe had some medicine even, I suppose. But it's not really that important. You know, that's how this works for the people who have the power. They're not human in the way we normally think of it, in that they don't have humanistic values. Bloody hell. All right, let's wrap this one up. So yeah, she was involved with educating workers, kind of socialist, disrupted the king's pony. Oh no. Sylvia Pankhurst herself was among the most militant of the suffragists, suffering repeated imprisonments, where she undertook hunger strikes, thirst, sleep, and rest strikes. And this is an important one. This is another thing you can do. People often think about strikes as like an action of a union or a movement. It doesn't have to be like all bombings and whatnot. You can sabotage the workings from a historical perspective, not a call to action saying what people have done in the past, but it is possible to sabotage the workings of a government or a social system or whatever the case may be, not necessarily by being violent, and not necessarily through a general strike, which Americans don't even know is a thing you can do. Like when you see the Actors Guild go on strike or the Screenwriters Guild, it's not a group of employees for a specific employer, like when, UPS drivers go on strike. It's all of them. All of them in the union all strike together. You don't have to be a part of a union. You could have a general strike where everyone walks off every job and stays that way until shit gets fixed.
I mean, we had that situation during COVID because there were a few cases in the plant and they didn't tell us. And so we stopped working. But then the union didn't back us because they said technically that wasn't part of the contract, and we cannot do what they call a sit-in strike. It had to be negotiated. But after we did that,
sitting at your station and not working, you're not there.
Well, that's what we did. We sat down and did not work. But they still had a problem with that until we had to get back to work. But after they did that, that's when they did the thorough cleaning, laid us off for a couple months to help initiate a safer COVID environment. So I guess it did help a little bit, but they did not want to.
Yeah,
They did not want
any
us to stop
any
working at
kind of
that time.
demonstration. Now, I wanna show y'all one more thing before we go here, and that is I realize I was just talking about the website because the store is at the back end here, but
Yes.
we're not doing the capitalism right now. We are doing I think it's on the resources page. Let me see here.
Okay.
Yeah, all the way at the bottom of the resources page, historical documents. This is a CIA issued World War II how-to guidebook. And by how-to guide, I mean it showed the European freedom fighters how to resist the Nazis without getting into trouble, without killing anyone, without hurting anyone, hopefully without getting caught. Little things like sugar in the gas tanks of the ICE agents, I mean, the Gestapo, or caltrops made out of bent nails to throw in front of the secret police cars, little things you could do, but also innocuous things. Don't stop production. Don't do a sit-in strike, but slow down. Just go slower. Don't get yourself in trouble. Just make it harder for the wheels of war to turn. And then you can keep doing it. And if everybody does just a little bit, it's going to compromise the effectiveness of the overall machine. Throw all the little wrenches into the gears. You don't have to go bombing shit. You can just fuck up the way they do things. It's a low-key kind of non-sabotage sabotage. But there's also instructions in there for how to do actual sabotage too, which it's outdated, it's historical, but you may find interesting. So that guide is there too. The other historical document is an old Army handbook that explains how some people go about making improvised devices, or did back in the old days. And certainly we don't have the same tools available today, so it's purely for historical interest purposes only. This is another reason I keep imploring people to look at the fucking website, because I've got all kinds of useful shit on there for you, but you don't know it's there if you don't go look. C'est la vie. Whatever you wish to. Yes, we need a reprint of Steal This Book, except it's full of how to fight the government and not be killed for it 101. Holy shit. Because holy shit, we need it more than ever. My goodness. Alrighty, folks. So that's going to just about do it. I think you understand what I've been trying to say. That Black Friday started because of state violence against people seeking their human rights. And we're in a very analogous position today. So maybe we need to learn some of the lessons of history, because while it's wonderful how successful the No Kings protests and other demonstrations have been, they're not effective if the people who need to take them seriously aren't. If they're just ignoring these efforts, we need different efforts. And also, frankly, the history's kind of cool. I'm a little bit bummed that Lil couldn't join us, because I know she loves history.
Yes, she does.
But we do what we can, And thank
I'm
you all for
gonna.
joining us. It is time to say adieu for the day. Once again, adult Bible study later tonight, debate review with Mark Reed this weekend, possibly bonus shows if I can. And on Monday, we're starting Atheist Advent, and we're going to begin at the beginning.
I'm gonna plug tomorrow noon. I have a show that's going to be dual streamed on the Black Non-Believers channel and my channel, where I'm going to be interviewing Kyoto Masasa. I might say the name wrong. I will figure that out when it's interview. But he's a Uganda that now lives in the UK, who is talking about the different type of laws that they have to try to. It's what's trying to go on now, dealing with the trans rights and LGBTQ rights and stuff like that. Well, many other countries, they can be put to death for that. So I'm going to be discussing him, because he's a lawyer fighting for rights in that country and in those various countries. So that would be my interview tomorrow at noon. And that's it for now.
Neat. All right. Real quick, I want to thank everybody who sent super chats because those do help a lot. I very, very much appreciate those. So, Lil sent us $5 saying, internet might suck, but still love y'all. Also, Kip tried to steal the ham yesterday. Damn it, Kip.
Which one?
I know. She didn't specify. So we just
I
have to
know.
assume it could be either Kip.
Maybe I'll do
And he also, Lil also used member chat to say, take what ye can, take the vote, and kick out the Christo-fascists. Jester sent us $5. Thank you, Jester. And said, now how do we make every Friday a Black Friday while boycotting actually buying anything? Titan, want to fight me over a cart, then ditch it at checkout. It's a possibility. And Jester sent us $2 saying metric mustard would have gone off. And it's true. Because fancy mustards, as a general rule, just do pop off. But as always, friends, thank you so much for joining us. And do remember, you don't have to build archaic weapons out of inferior mustard. Because there are other ways, as they say, if you know what I mean. And we will see you tonight. Toodles. Thanks to all our patrons and top-level members for October. Miranda, Karen Butcher, Jessica the Transmetal Alchemist, Robin Webster, Maya Adkison, Jimmy Tux, Ian Chen, Kalasia, Lilith, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, Godless Engineer, Jester, Lil of All Trades, Deviant Outcast, and Kelly King, the Detroit Atheist Queen. And you can add your name here next month by signing up at patreon.com/betterthanember, or by joining Emberships here on YouTube at the Cinder level, which includes all the custom emojis, tons of member-exclusive content, member-only live streams, and a bunch of other stuff. I deeply appreciate all the supporters who keep this channel going. Thank you all so much. Because of you, we're building a wonderful community that I'm very proud of.
Just like a spark that's breaking out, can't make a stop.